everybody, it's great to be here today. My name is Will Haskel. I'm running for the state senate in the 26th district against somebody who has actually been serving in Hartford for 22 years. And there's a symmetry to that because the 800-pound gorilla in the room is that I am 22 years old. Far too long. I thought I'd briefly describe why I decided to do this, because I know it's not the normal career choice of somebody who just graduated from college. I woke up the morning after Donald Trump's election, and I'm sure like many of you, absolutely devastated, but also feeling like I had to do something. And I grew up in Westport, Connecticut. I went back to Westport and I said, you know, we have this Republican state senator and everybody has just sort of agreed that she's a moderate. Nobody's bothered to do the research, but I started to look into it a little bit. And I found out she opposed paid family leave. She stood in the way of legislation that would have made sure no one in Connecticut has to choose between advancing in their career and caring for an ill parent or starting a family. I found out that she threatened to filibuster a bill that would have connected children with cancer to the medical marijuana that they needed, prescribed by doctors. I found out that she just recently proposed a bill that would allow anybody to buy as much ammunition as they want without any check on your identity or without a certificate at a gun range. These bills fall on the extreme right wing in Hartford, and I was shocked because I grew up around here and I know the values of this community. We're moderate, we're progressive, we are inclusive, and we care about gun safety. And yet we had a state senator who had simply been there too long and grown complacent, and the voters weren't paying attention. So in this campaign, I'm stressing gun violence prevention because ghost guns should be banned in Connecticut. Nobody should be allowed to order a gun over the mail. I also want to protect our infrastructure in Connecticut. You know, we have 350 crumbling bridges in this state. I drove over 2 of them to get here today. And yet our incumbent state senator is the chair of the Transportation Committee. She says that she cares about public transportation, and yet there was a bill in the last session, really common sense, that would have said every dollar that we tax for transportation purposes has to actually be spent on transportation. It seems like everybody would support that, except because the Democrats had proposed it, Tony Boucher voted against it. We've allowed partisan politics to enter into something as ubiquitous and important as transportation. And finally, I want to build a state where young people are excited about living and working. None of my friends from high school are choosing between Brooklyn and Bethel or Bridgeport, but that's a problem. We need to start drawing young people to this state if we're going to have a thriving economy. And in order to do that, we need to start electing young people. Look, this is going to be a really tough race. She's been in for a very long time, but in 1962, President Kennedy boldly declared that we would land on the moon by the end of the decade, and it didn't happen for another 7 years. But when Neil Armstrong took his first steps on the moon, the average age of those cheering him on in NASA's control room was just 26 years old. That means they were 19 when they heard the president's call to action and they rose to the challenge. I think that my generation has heard President Obama's farewell address that said, if you're disappointed in your elected officials, grab a clipboard, get some signatures, and run for office yourself. And we're rising to the challenge of protecting our community in the era of Donald Trump. So thank you all so much for having me here today.